What if your body wasn't entirely yours? What if birth control, abortion access, or lack thereof, wasn't just about health or choice, but something far darker? For decades, governments and global elites have quietly influenced who gets to reproduce, and who doesn't. From forced sterilizations to voluntary contraception programs, the control of women's bodies has been weaponized in the name of population management, especially against the poor, the marginalized, and the voiceless. This isn't just history. It's happening now. Welcome to the shadowy world of population control through women's bodies. Eugenics and the origins of birth control, a hidden agenda? On the surface, the invention of birth control is often hailed as a victory for women's liberation. But peel back the layers, and a far more disturbing origin story begins to emerge, one rooted in eugenics, racism, and social engineering. In the early 20th century, figures like Margaret Sanger, founder of what would become Planned Parenthood, publicly advocated for birth control as a means of empowering women. Yet privately, she worked alongside prominent eugenicists who believed that society should control who gets to reproduce based on intelligence, race, class, and even perceived morality. Sanger herself once promoted the idea of preventing the reproduction of those she called unfit. While some defend her legacy as a product of her time, others see this as a deliberate alignment with a larger population control agenda. Eugenics wasn't a fringe movement, it was backed by major institutions, universities, and governments. Laws allowing forced sterilization of the unfit existed in the United States for decades, inspired by the belief that certain populations, especially Black, Indigenous, disabled, or impoverished women, were a threat to national progress. Birth control clinics were disproportionately placed in marginalized neighborhoods, not to offer choice, but to subtly discourage reproduction among certain groups. Was this coincidence, or targeted design? Were these clinics truly about reproductive freedom, or quiet tools of demographic manipulation? The uncomfortable truth is that the early birth control movement was never just about women's health. It was about control, deciding who gets to have children and who doesn't, all under the guise of public good. And echoes of this mindset can still be felt in today's policies. Covert experiments and forced sterilizations. What happens when women become test subjects, without ever giving consent? While mainstream history glosses over it, real documents and testimonies reveal that forced sterilization and unethical medical experiments have been carried out across the world, often targeting the most vulnerable. In the 1950s and 60s, Puerto Rico became a testing ground for experimental birth control methods. Poor women, many unaware they were part of trials, were given high-dose birth control pills with little information and no follow-up care. The island became what some called the perfect lab, far from the mainland and politically invisible. Was it just pharmaceutical overreach, or deliberate experimentation on a colonized population? Meanwhile, in the continental U.S., thousands of Native American women were sterilized by the Indian Health Service in the 1970s, many without their knowledge. Some were told it was a routine procedure after childbirth. Others were coerced under threat of losing welfare benefits. According to a 1976 U.S. Government Accountability Office report, up to 25% of Native women of childbearing age had been sterilized in just a few years. That's not negligence. That's a program. In Eastern Europe, particularly among Roma, Gypsy, women, reports continue to surface about forced sterilizations even into the 2000s. These women were viewed by governments as socially undesirable, and their reproductive rights were stripped in silence. The pattern is chilling. Marginalized women, those deemed less valuable by the system, are repeatedly used as tools for population control experiments, masked as public health. These are not isolated scandals. They form a global pattern of reproductive violation, often brushed aside by officials and media. If this could happen in hospitals, clinics, and public institutions under government supervision, how much trust can we really place in today's reproductive healthcare systems? Stop. If you like this video, please give us a like, leave a comment behind, and don't forget to subscribe, since we have a new video every day. And now, let's roll back to the video. Modern-day policies or choices? A masked control system. Today, reproductive rights are often framed as pillars of freedom and bodily autonomy. But behind the polished language of family planning and access to care, some argue that a more calculated agenda is unfolding, one that continues the legacy of population control through subtler, systemic means. Governments and NGOs frequently fund contraceptive initiatives in low-income and marginalized communities, especially in the Global South. These programs are advertised as empowering women with choices, but who decides which choices are funded, and which are restricted? In places like Africa, Southeast Asia, and even parts of inner-city America, contraception programs are aggressively promoted, sometimes with monetary incentives or pressure from social workers and aid agencies. But fertility treatments, prenatal care, or even access to childbirth support are often unavailable or deprioritized. The message is clear. Prevention is funded, reproduction is not. Policies like long-acting reversible contraceptives, LARCs, such as IUDs and implants, are heavily promoted to certain demographics. In some U.S. states, judges have offered reduced sentences or probation if women agree to birth control implants. Is that justice, or coercion? And while wealthy, educated women are often celebrated for choosing motherhood at any age, low-income women, especially women of color, are often shamed or stigmatized for having multiple children. The social narrative has been shaped. Some pregnancies are empowering, others are irresponsible. When viewed through this lens, reproductive policy isn't just about access, it's about selective encouragement and strategic discouragement. The same systems that once forcibly sterilized women now use economic pressure, social narratives, and uneven access to subtly guide who should and shouldn't have children. Is this still reproductive freedom? Or is it population management with a rebranded face? Conclusion. Throughout history, the control of women's bodies has been disguised as medicine, progress, and empowerment. But when we connect the dots, from eugenics-inspired birth control programs, to forced sterilizations, to today's targeted contraceptive policies, a chilling pattern emerges. One where the most vulnerable women are not protected, but manipulated. Not given freedom, but guided toward decisions that serve a larger agenda. This isn't just about the past. It's about now. About whose fertility is valued, and whose is treated as a problem to solve. About how power structures, governments, pharmaceutical companies, even humanitarian organizations may still be quietly deciding who gets to reproduce and who doesn't. The question we have to ask isn't just do women have access to reproductive health? It's who is controlling that access and why. Because if population control is being carried out through women's bodies, then the true war isn't just political or medical. It's biological.